Hello, everyone. This is Walk the Parks. Today, we're going to do a full hike of the Elephant Back Trail, also called the Elephant Back Mountain Trail in Yellowstone National Park. Um, Basically, I'm going to give you a rundown on exactly what the hike is like and some statistics and things like that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Yellowstone and the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which is pretty incredible. And then I'll probably leave you and you can kind of check out the rest of the hike on your own. Now, I think this video is helpful for those who want to go to Yellowstone and decide what hike they want to do, right? So you might be going there for a few days. Is this hike worth it or not? Honestly, it's a pretty cool hike. You go up and you do get a pretty beautiful view of Yellowstone Lake. So I'd recommend it. I mean, honestly, it's not one of the top hikes in the park as far as scenery goes, but all of the top hikes as far as scenery go in Yellowstone are kind of, they have more people on them. So if you're looking for a bit more solitude and still like kind of get a solid hike and have some fun and kind of escape the crowds a little bit, then this is a good trail for you. So if that sounds interesting, stay tuned and a subscription or a like or a comment. I would love to hear about your guys' trips to Yellowstone or if you thought this video was good or bad or whatnot. Thank you so much. So let's see here. The Elephant Back Mountain Trail. This trail is about 4-ish miles total. I got about 4.14 miles according to my Strava that I'll put down in the description. It is a lollipop loop trail configuration. I ended up going like you have pretty long, like kind of stick to the lollipop. I ended up going right, and that was pretty beautiful. But you could also go left. I mean, go counterclockwise or clockwise around the lollipop. I'm not really sure it matters too much. I was pretty happy with the way I went, which was counterclockwise. And the reason for that, or excuse me, yeah, did I go counterclockwise? Yeah, I went counterclockwise. I'm thinking in my head, like, which way is counterclockwise? Anyway, I take a right at the intersection when there is an opportunity at the lollipop end of the stick. I liked it because on the way down, I kind of had some good views, which was pretty cool, as you'll see. So again, about 4 miles, you do gain about 1,000 feet of elevation gain, so that's significant. Definitely call it a moderate hike. It's not extremely challenging, but also not the easiest hike in the world. And the estimated time given is 2 to 3 hours. I always feel like this varies so highly. I mean, you could be quite a fit person, and it might not take you long at all, or like it took me an hour and 22 minutes. But I do cut out any breaks that I take, so I do edit these videos, obviously. So it took me about 1 hour 22 minutes, but it could take you significantly longer, depending on your fitness level, how many breaks you take, and things like that. So basically, moderate hike, can be good in the morning. You can have kind of a calmer looking lake, or you could really do this all the time. Most of the hike is in kind of dense forest, so keep that in mind. And this hike is approximately like April through September. If it's a real snowy winter, maybe it'd be a little later than April and things like that. So there's really just a small trailhead parking area directly off the Grand Loop Road. It's across from Lake Village. So I think a lot of people probably, if they're staying at Lake Village, would come and do this hike. Otherwise, yeah, there was pretty limited things. This is known as one of the least visited trails in Yellowstone. So as I said, for some people, maybe that's a huge like maybe not as exciting because it's not as popular. But for a lot of people, myself included, I like the stuff like that. It's kind of fun to go off the beaten path and check out some off the beaten path trails. The trail did parallel the road briefly, as you saw. Um, there's really no water sources on trail, so make sure to bring plenty of water. There was kind of a swamp thing that I crossed just a couple minutes ago, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend there. Mostly forested throughout, as I said, a lot of lodgepole pine forest dominating. Sometimes we'll see some ferns, which is pretty cool. And obviously, you see some kind of sunlight filtering through the trees, which is nice. But like I said, quiet, peaceful atmosphere with minimal crowding. I did run into a few people, as we'll see here, but that's about it. So, views of Yellowstone Lake emerge through the trees, and the lake becomes increasingly visible with the higher elevation as you go. and the trail does kind of level out as you go up. But I do remember the climb being fairly steep, so take your time. And you're kind of around 8,000 feet sea level at the top of this climb, too. So keep that in mind especially if you're not from high altitude or from elevation. That might be extremely challenging. And what does that mean, really? Just that you'll be kind of winded and tired more quickly. In order to combat that, good things to do are just like kind of acclimate. So if you can go a few days early and just kind of hang out at elevation. Alternatively, you can drink a lot of water and as usual, just like listen to your body, right? Like if you're feeling exhausted, um, take a break. Don't overexert yourself and definitely don't get altitude sickness or anything like that. There really is no backcountry camping available here. Dogs aren't allowed on the trail. I would say this trail is pretty kid friendly. Maybe for older children, it might be better, but it's really not too bad. Pretty easy to follow. As you can see, the trail is pretty well defined, and that's the case pretty much the whole hike, which is nice. One thing that's interesting about the West compared to the East is that the trails aren't nearly as well marked. Like on the East Coast, I mean, I suppose because it's so foresty, but like on the Appalachian Trail or in the Adirondacks, so many places have there's just marker after marker after marker, or white blaze after white blaze after white blaze, as would be the case with the Appalachian Trail. But it's just interesting because the West, they barely mark it at all in a lot of ways. Like, really, it's just kind of you follow the trail, intersections are marked, and that's about it. Um, Kind of interesting way to do it. But I suppose the East too, like you can run into more foggy conditions more commonly. Also, if there is a lot of leaves or something, that can kind of obstruct the ground. So it is kind of important to have them more well marked. But anyway, I digress. So, maybe consider bringing hiking poles or something on this. You do get a pretty cool view at the summit. In terms of Lake Village and the Fishing Bridge area, which is right out here. I think Fishing Bridge is really pretty. The bridge you go over is really cool. And then I don't know, I just thought it was really pretty there in general. It's kind of in the southeastern section of Yellowstone National Park, located on the northern shore of Yellowstone Lake, and it's connected via the Grand Loop Road, easily accessible from both east entrance and south entrance routes. It's one of the older communities in Yellowstone National Park, established in 1880s. It was originally developed as a camping site for visitors, later served as a tuberculosis treatment facility before becoming the recreation hub that it is today. So, pretty interesting. And right now, the Lake Yellowstone Hotel is there, which was opened in 1891, making it the longest standing lodging facility in any national park. That's pretty cool. There's also some historic significance. It was designated as a natural historic landmark. Right now has about 153 rooms, which is pretty cool. Between 1891 and 1917, most visitors arrived by boat via West Thumb Marina. So that's interesting. And so you could maybe stay there. I mean, in terms of lodging in the park, I would say this. Number one, if you're going to visit Yellowstone, give it a few days. There is so much to explore, even just driving, even if you're just going to check out the geothermal features and things like that. There is just so much to see. I mean, sure, you could just drive around the whole place in a day. Even that, it would be hard. If you can drive through it in a day, but there is just so much to see. Like, you definitely want to go to Old Faithful. You definitely want to go to a bunch of other geothermal spots. I would also highly recommend going to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Yellowstone Falls is absolutely amazing. The brink of the falls is incredible. They it's just so there's just so much to explore. The Lamar Valley is really incredible. Such a cool place. So that said, I would really recommend staying somewhere in the park. Maybe you could get away with if you stay in the town of West Yellowstone or something like that. But staying in the park is a lot easier just because it is so big. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing a lot of driving, all the way out of the park, all the way back in. But that said, lodging is somewhat limited and in pretty high demand in the park. This is one of the most visited national parks. Obviously, Yellowstone has a huge, fame and, it's just a super famous place. So keep that in mind. So it can be hard to get reservations. Sometimes you can get kind of lucky and you can find reservations. People make last minute cancellations, but a lot of people don't like to travel like that, especially if you're going here um on a trip. You don't want to like it can be kind of nerve wracking to just leave reservations to the last minute. You can go to Yellowstone National Park Lodges.com. They also have a bunch of campgrounds on there, so that's something to consider. Um, Very beautiful though, but I don't think you'd be able to get away with just like sleeping in your car, sleeping in your RV at a trailhead. I would say, I mean, I'm sure people have done it, but doesn't seem like the best place to go. The best way to go, excuse me. So keep that in mind. Campgrounds are fantastic in Yellowstone. Highly recommend those. But like I said, it's going to be hard to do it very easily. And sometimes I think people, especially in Yellowstone, like when you're like, oh, we'll go to do Yellowstone for the day. I mean, man, you are just driving far distances. So keep that in mind. And these roads have tons and tons of deer and elk on them and stuff like that. So not always the best place to be driving at night and things like that. Now, as far as the fishing bridge area, originally built in 1902 with a corduroy log bridge construction, but it was replaced and rebuilt in 1937, which is the bridge that's still standing today. It spans the Yellowstone River, where it flows out of Yellowstone Lake. It's a pretty historic. The historic bridge is at the outlet of the lake's northern tip, and historically one of the most popular fishing destinations in the park. There's a major spawning area for cutthroat trout in the area, so that's pretty cool. But angling from the bridge was banned in 1973 due to declining cutthroat trout population. Today, visitors can observe hundreds of protected trout from the bridge without disrupting them. There is a pretty cool fishing bridge museum and visitor center, which is 1 mile east of the Grand Loop Road on East Entrance Road, open late May through September. Um, there's some exhibits on the park birds and nearby geology, so that's pretty cool. As far as Yellowstone Lake is about 7,700 feet above sea level. It's the largest body of water in Wyoming, largest freshwater lake above 7,000 feet of elevation in North America, and it's the second largest lake in the world at such high elevation. Not sure what the highest is. If anybody knows, please throw that down in the comments. I'm curious myself. So it's about 20 miles long and 14 miles wide at its greatest extent, and its surface area is about 132 or so square miles. And there's about 141 miles of shoreline, average depth of about 140 feet. Um, the maximum depth is about 400 feet, and approximately 6 dozen streams and rivers feed into it, including Yellowstone River. And the Yellowstone River drains the lake at the northern end. And despite hot water vents on lake bottom, water remains cold year round, which is unsurprising. Ice formation begins around late December and early January, and it remains frozen until late May or early June. So even if you have some warming things underneath, these several months of ice, which can reach nearly 3 feet thick in winter months, keeps things cold. The northern two thirds of the lake occupies the southeastern portion of the Yellowstone caldera. The caldera was formed by huge volcanic eruption about 650,000 years ago. The lake was historically about 200 feet higher than the current level, and recent changes due to volcanic events. So that's pretty cool. Really, there's so many cool geothermal features all around Yellowstone. It's cool to think about, like, you're just walking on this huge volcano and you're literally kind of seeing the geysers and stuff. It's just kind of water heated up by literal lava that's not even that far below the surface, which is pretty crazy. Um, West Thumb Geyser Basin is right on the lake. Like, it's not really near this trail. I mean, it's somewhat close to this trail. I think it's maybe 15, 20 miles away. Um, that is the first Yellowstone's hydrothermal feature to be described in print. So that's pretty cool. So, trapper John Coulter in the early 19th century was the first known European to see the lake. And there was a big fur trading era in 1820 to 1840. A lot of trapping parties visited the lake region. I can't imagine how much wildlife there must have been in this area in 1820. Absolutely unbelievable. Trapper Osborne Russell's 1836 diary description described the area's beauty and abundant wildlife. I didn't actually read it. I just kind of looked it up and found that, but that does sound really cool. It's definitely on my list. I'd love to hear what Trapper Osborne Russell had to say about in 1836. I can't even imagine. Like I said, I mean, just look around here too. I can't even imagine just walking around. It's just such crazy wilderness. Without having a trail must have been an incredibly challenging place to live. The forest and valleys surrounding Yellowstone Lake was populated by Native Americans for at least 11,000 years, and 26 tribes today claim cultural association with Yellowstone. The Native Americans hunted bison and bighorn sheep. They fished cutthroat trout and gathered bitterroot and camas bulbs. It's cool to think about like how the Native Americans lived in the areas like this because if you had a fairly small community, I feel like it'd be pretty cool. Like winters would be extremely challenging and just rough in general, as they are anywhere except for in our modern times when we have the pleasure of just heat and insulated walls. Um, but I think like an area like this, if you don't have too many people, you could probably like live off of bison and not really have to even hunt that many so so that's pretty interesting. I don't know, something I always think about. Must have been a cool place to live, although I'm sure extremely challenging. Yellowstone National Park was established in 1872. President Ulysses S. Grant signed into the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act into law. It's the first national park in the entire world, which is pretty cool. And surveyors promoted and protected the land starting in 1871 using photographs, painting, and personal accounts to convince Congress. It's about 2.2 million acres, which is 3,468 square miles. And it's the second largest national park in the contiguous US. Death Valley is actually larger. Death Valley is really cool too. I don't know if you've been there. It's so hot. Like you really want to go there in winter, but that can be cold. But Death Valley is so incredible. If you guys haven't been, I would highly recommend that. There are 310 miles of paved road throughout the park. And it goes from a low of 5,282 feet at the Gardner River. And the highest point is 11,358 feet at Eagle Peak. About 5 million visitors a year, or I don't know, maybe 4 to 5. It's tough to find the maybe 4 million visitors a year. Still insane. This is where the trail splits, by the way. And I am going to go right. So I don't have too much else to say. I think I'm just gonna leave it here. Elephant back is pretty cool. Highly recommended. I'll put a chapter note as to where the viewpoint is here, so you can check that out, and we will go from there. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.